You reach into the back of your pantry, and your hand comes out coated in something you can't quite name, and in that half second you already know it's bad. That was me, on a Tuesday morning, standing in my kitchen in my socks, holding a bag of flour that had turned into a moving thing. Here's what I learned the hard way, and what I want to hand you before it ever happens to you. The way most of us over 60 store our food, our medicine, and our everyday supplies isn't just messy. It is quietly costing us hundreds of dollars a year, and in some cases, robbing us of the one thing we swore we'd never lose, which is the ability to take care of ourselves. And the fix isn't a gadget. It's a set of forgotten storage tricks my grandmother knew cold, and I somehow never learned. Methods that got buried on purpose so we'd keep buying the expensive way. By the end of this, I'm going to give you something I found tucked inside a government bulletin from 1942, a document almost nobody reads anymore, that tells you exactly how to keep vegetables fresh for months without a refrigerator, in the home you already have, on the budget you already live on. I still remember the smell that morning. It wasn't rotten exactly. It was dusty and sweet and wrong, and when I looked closer at that flour bag, I saw the little brown weevils crawling in the seams, and my stomach dropped, because right behind that bag sat $40 of rice, cereal, and pasta I'd bought on sale to be smart. All of it was ruined. I stood there doing the math, and the number stung, but the thing that scared me more came a week later, so hold on to that. Because when I started adding it up, the flour was the small loss. I want to walk you back to how I got there, because I bet your kitchen looks a lot like mine did. I kept my flour and rice in the paper bags they came in. I kept my medicine in the bathroom cabinet, right over the sink. I kept my potatoes and onions together in a nice basket on the counter because it looked good. I kept batteries in the refrigerator because somebody once told me that was clever. And I stored my important papers in a cardboard box in the basement. Every single one of those choices was wrong, and every single one of them was costing me. Now here's where I first got angry, because I went looking for why nobody ever taught me this, and what I found made my jaw tighten. My grandmother never lost a bag of flour to weevils in her life. She kept a couple of bay leaves tucked right into the flour and the cornmeal and the rice. The bugs won't cross that smell. It's a trick that goes back generations, cost her nothing, and it just quietly disappeared from how we live. Why did it disappear? Because somewhere along the way, the companies that sell us food figured out that a family that knows how to store things for the long haul is a family that buys less. Spoilage is not their problem. Spoilage is their business model. When your rice goes bad, you buy more rice. When your bread molds in 3 days, you buy more bread. The waste is built in, and the knowledge that used to protect you got quietly pushed out of the kitchen and replaced with plastic containers and expiration date fear. The United States Department of Agriculture has studied this for decades. Their own researchers estimate the average American household throws away somewhere between 30 and 40% of its food. For a couple on a fixed income, that can be well over $1,000 a year walking straight into the trash can. $1,000 gone. Because nobody handed us the tricks their own grandparents used without thinking. So let me start handing them to you, one at a time, the way I learned them after that terrible Tuesday. The bay leaf trick was the first thing I did, and it worked so well it made me suspicious of everything else I thought I knew. But then I read one line that stopped me, a warning that the flour itself might already be carrying what ruins it, and that's the part almost nobody realizes. Here's the thing nobody tells you. The weevils don't crawl in from outside most of the time. The eggs are already in the flour when you buy it. microscopic, waiting for warmth. So the bay leaf helps, but the real trick, the one my grandmother did automatically, is this. When you bring flour, cornmeal, or rice home, you put the whole bag in your freezer for 4 full days before you store it. The cold kills the eggs before they ever hatch. 4 days in the freezer, then move it to a glass jar with a tight lid and a bay leaf, and you will not lose another bag for a year or more. A glass jar, not the paper bag, not even the fancy plastic bin. Glass, because bugs can chew through plastic and paper but never glass, and because you can see exactly what's inside. I started saving every pasta sauce jar, every pickle jar, every jam jar, washing them out and lining my shelves with them. It cost me nothing. My pantry started looking like an old-time general store, and more important, it stopped bleeding money. But food was only where my trouble started, because remember I told you the flour was the small loss. The week after the weevils, I got dizzy. Really dizzy, the kind that makes you sit down fast and grab the counter, and I want to tell you exactly what that felt like, because it's the moment this whole thing turned from money into something scarier. I was taking a blood pressure pill I'd been on for 2 years. I kept it, like most people do, in the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, right there above the sink where it was handy. And I could not figure out why my numbers had been climbing, even though I never missed a dose. So I did what you're supposed to do. I called the pharmacist, an older fellow named Ray who'd been behind that counter for 30-some years, and I described everything, and Ray asked me one question that I will never forget. He asked, "Where do you keep your pills?" I said the bathroom cabinet. And Ray went quiet for a second, and then he said, "That's the worst place in your whole house." Here's what I didn't know, and what the drug companies are in no hurry to explain on the label in plain words. The bathroom is the hottest, most humid room in your home. Every hot shower fills that little cabinet with steam, and most medications, especially the common ones for blood pressure, blood thinning, and thyroid, start breaking down when they get warm and damp. The pill looks fine, it looks exactly the same, but the medicine inside is weaker than what your doctor prescribed. I had been taking pills that were quietly losing their strength, and I never had a clue, because the pill looked perfect and the bottle said it was good for another year. Ray told me the old way, the way pharmacists used to tell everybody before the counters got so busy nobody had time to talk. Keep your medicine somewhere cool, dark, and dry. A bedroom drawer, a hall closet shelf, a kitchen cabinet away from the stove and the sink. Never the bathroom, and never the windowsill, and never the car. And here's the countdown part that scared me straight. If I hadn't gotten dizzy, I might have gone months more on weak medicine, and for a man my age with my blood pressure, that's not a small thing. That's the kind of mistake that ends with a stroke and a nursing home and losing your own front door. I moved every bottle to my bedroom dresser that same afternoon. So now I'd fixed my flour and my medicine, and I felt pretty smart, but the truth is I'd only scratched the surface, because the next thing I discovered was hiding in my vegetable basket, and it had been costing me the whole time. You know how you buy a nice bag of potatoes, and within 2 or 3 weeks they're soft, sprouting those pale little eyes, going green in spots? I thought that was just how potatoes were. I thought they had a short life. I was throwing out half of every bag. Then I read something that made me feel like a fool. Potatoes and onions should never, ever be stored together. Onions give off a gas and a moisture that makes potatoes sprout and rot faster. For years I'd kept them in the same pretty basket, and I'd been sabotaging both of them with my own hands. Keep potatoes in a paper bag or a cardboard box, somewhere cool and dark, away from onions. Keep onions somewhere dry and airy, in an old mesh bag or even one leg of an old pair of pantyhose with a knot tied between each onion. My grandmother used to hang onions like that in her cellar, a whole rope of them, and I used to think it was just because she was thrifty. She wasn't just being thrifty, she was doing food science that the rest of us forgot. And there it was again, that pattern. The knowledge existed. It worked. It cost nothing. And somewhere along the way it got replaced by a plastic vegetable drawer and a habit of just buying more when the old ones went bad. But I want to stop right here because I know exactly who's listening, and I put this next part in especially for you. Maybe you're watching this on a careful income. Maybe you live alone in an apartment with no basement, no garage, no fancy pantry, no money to run out and buy a bunch of glass jars and containers. And maybe a little voice is telling you that all of this is fine for people with big houses and money to spend, but not for you. I want to talk straight to you for a minute, because you are exactly the person these tricks were made for. Every single method I've told you so far costs nothing. Bay leaves are pennies, and one leaf lasts for months. The freezer trick uses the freezer you already own. Moving your pills to a bedroom drawer is free. Separating your potatoes and onions is free. Saving jars from food you already buy is free, and it actually stops you from spending. But let me give you one more, right now, that costs nothing and might be the most useful thing in this whole video for someone living alone. Get yourself a permanent marker, the cheap kind, and start writing the date on everything the day you open it. Not the fake expiration date the company prints, the real date you opened it. Because here's what happens when you live alone. Things sit. You forget, you second guess, and then you either throw out good food because you're scared, or you eat something too old because you can't remember. That one marker ends the guessing. My grandmother did it with a pencil on the lid of every jar she put up. She called it keeping honest books on her own pantry. And here's a second free one for you. Those little silica gel packets that come in vitamin bottles, in shoe boxes, in packages of jerky, the ones that say do not eat and you always throw away. Stop throwing them away. Drop them into your box of important papers, into your jar of extra batteries, into the container where you keep matches or your hearing aid supplies. They pull moisture out of the air and protect everything around them, for free, using something you were about to put in the trash. You do not need money to store things right. You need the knowledge that got taken away from us. And I'm giving it back, one piece at a time. Now, let me get back to my story. Because remember those batteries I kept in the refrigerator, thinking I was clever? That's a myth, and it's one that can actually cost you. Cold, damp air is bad for regular batteries. The condensation when you take them out can corrode the contacts. Keep your batteries in a cool, dry drawer, at room temperature, in their original package, or in a plastic case, so the ends don't touch metal or each other. That's it. Somebody spread that refrigerator story years ago and it just stuck, the way bad advice does, while the good advice quietly slipped away. And speaking of things touching that shouldn't, let me tell you about the box of family photographs I found in my basement, because this is the loss that still hurts. I had a cardboard box of pictures down there. My wedding, my kids when they were small, my own parents, young, in black and white, photos there is exactly one copy of in the entire world. And I'd kept them in the basement, in cardboard, on the floor. When I finally went through that box after my scare, a good third of them were stuck together, curled, spotted with mold, faded where the damp had gotten in. Faces I can't get back. I sat on that cold basement floor and I cried. I'll admit it, because you cannot rebuy a photograph of your mother at 22. Here's what I should have known. Basements and attics are the two worst places in your home for anything you love. The basement is damp. The attic swings from freezing to boiling. Paper, photographs, and important documents need the same thing your medicine needs. Cool, dark, dry, and steady. A closet shelf in the main part of the house. And never store photos in those old sticky albums or touching each other. Slip a piece of plain paper between them, keep them up off any floor, and throw a couple of those silica packets in the box. I lost pictures I can never replace because nobody ever told me the basement was an enemy. Don't let that be you. Go move that box tonight. And that's where this stops being about my clumsy mistakes and starts being about something that honestly makes me angry. If everything I've shared so far has been landing with you the way it landed with me, I want to mention something that might help you go even deeper with all of this. I put together a book that walks through the full system I built after everything I lost that year. It's called Smart Starts, and it covers the exact steps I used to get organized fast, even with no budget and no special equipment. If you want to go further than this video can take you, there's also Deeper Frugal, which gets into the forgotten methods in much more detail, and the full system, which brings everything together in one place. You'll find the link in the description below this video. I wrote it for people exactly like us, people who are done losing money to mistakes nobody ever warned them about. Now let me get back to what I was telling you, because understanding why this knowledge disappeared is the key to taking it back. Think about it. For thousands of years, ordinary families knew how to keep food through a whole winter with no electricity at all. They knew how to store a harvest, cure a bit of meat, keep root vegetables crisp until spring, keep grain safe from bugs. This wasn't rare genius, this was normal. Your great-grandmother could feed a family through 5 months of snow out of a cellar and a few tricks. Then, in about 2 generations, most of that vanished. And it didn't vanish by accident. When the modern grocery store and the packaged food companies took over in the middle of the last century, they needed us to stop storing and start buying, over and over, every week, forever. A family that preserves is a family that buys once. A family that throws away 30% of its food and runs to the store every few days is the perfect customer. So the old skills weren't taught anymore. The cellar got turned into a rec room, the pantry got smaller, and the message, quiet but constant, became this: don't store it, don't trust old food. When in doubt, throw it out and buy more. The waste isn't your fault. The waste was designed. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it, and I went hunting for the real, old knowledge, the kind from before all this, and that's when I found the document I promised you at the start. But before I give you that, there are a few more quick tricks I earned through my own mistakes, and each one saves real money. Bread. I used to keep it on the counter and it molded in days, or I'd stick it in the fridge, which everybody does, and it went stale even faster. Here's the truth. The refrigerator is the worst place for bread. The cold actually makes bread go stale quicker. If you're going to eat it within a few days, keep it in a bread box or a cloth bag on the counter. If you can't eat it that fast, slice it and freeze it, and pull out what you need. Frozen bread toasts up like fresh. Cheese. I used to wrap it tight in plastic and it would either dry out or grow fuzz. Cheese is alive in a way. It needs to breathe a little. Wrap it in wax paper or parchment, then loosely in foil, and it lasts far longer and tastes better. That's the way the cheese shops did it before plastic wrap took over. Brown sugar going hard as a brick. Drop a slice of apple or a piece of bread into the bag. The sugar pulls the moisture and stays soft. My grandmother kept a little clay disc for it, but a piece of bread does the same thing for free. Honey. Real honey never spoils. Never. They found honey in Egyptian tombs, thousands of years old, still good. If yours turns solid and cloudy, that's not spoiled, that's just crystallized. Set the jar in warm water and it comes right back. So don't ever throw out honey, and store it in the pantry, never the fridge. Coffee. Not in the freezer, no matter what you heard. The moisture and the temperature swings ruin the flavor. Cool, dark, airtight, and away from the stove. Every one of these is a few cents or nothing, and together they add up to real money staying in your pocket instead of the stores. But here's the countdown tightening again, because all of these tricks share one enemy, and if you don't handle the enemy, none of them fully work. That enemy is moisture, and moisture is exactly what the document I found was built to defeat. Let me tell you what I dug up. There is a United States government publication called Farmer's Bulletin number 1939, titled Home Storage of Vegetables and Fruits. The Department of Agriculture put versions of this out during and right after the Second World War, around 1942, when the whole country was told to grow victory gardens and, just as important, to store what they grew, because food had to last and nothing could be wasted. This bulletin is not a folk tale. It is careful government research, written for ordinary families, and it lays out exactly how to keep vegetables and fruits fresh for months with no refrigerator, no electricity, no money. And when I read it, I realized my grandmother hadn't been passing down superstition. She'd been living out real science that the government itself had printed in plain black and white, and that almost nobody alive has read since. Here is the heart of it, the trick that changed everything for me, and I want you to be able to do it this weekend. Root vegetables, your carrots, beets, turnips, parsnips, radishes, will keep for months, crisp and fresh, if you store them buried in damp sand. Here's how. You take a box, a bucket, an old cooler, anything, and you put down a layer of sand, slightly damp, not wet. You lay your carrots or beets on it so they don't touch each other. Then another layer of damp sand, then another layer of vegetables, and so on. You keep that box somewhere cool, a garage, an unheated closet, a basement corner, a back porch. The sand holds just enough moisture to keep the vegetables from drying out and shriveling, but not enough to rot them, and it keeps the light and air off them so they think they're still in the ground. The bulletin from the 1940s spelled out temperatures and layers, but the idea is simple enough for anyone. Carrots that would go rubbery in your fridge in 2 weeks will stay firm and sweet in that sand for 4, 5, even 6 months. I tried it that first fall with a bag of carrots I got cheap at the end of the farmer's market season. In February, in the dead of winter, I pulled out carrots as crisp as the day I put them in. I stood in my cold garage holding a perfect carrot in the middle of winter, and I thought about my grandmother, and I thought about how close I'd come to never knowing any of this. And here's the piece that ties the whole thing together, the last secret, the one that felt like magic when I understood it. That same old wisdom says to keep 1 apple in with your stored potatoes. Now that sounds backwards, because I told you onions ruin potatoes. But an apple does the opposite. An apple gives off a tiny amount of a natural gas that actually keeps potatoes from sprouting. One apple in a paper bag or box of potatoes in a cool, dark spot, and those potatoes stay firm and eye-free for months instead of sprouting in 3 weeks. Modern researchers have confirmed it, but our grandparents were doing it 100 years ago because they simply couldn't afford to lose a single potato. One apple, pennies, months of potatoes saved, and I never knew, because the people who profit when my potatoes rot were never going to tell me. So think about where I started, a bag of crawling flour, dizzy in my kitchen from weak medicine, a box of ruined photographs of my own mother on a cold basement floor, all of it because the simple, powerful knowledge that used to live in every home had been quietly carried off, and I was left buying and wasting and buying again, a little poorer and a little more dependent every year. And think about where I am now, a pantry lined with glass jars and bay leaves that don't go bad, medicine in a cool, dark drawer, doing its full job, carrots crisp in the sand in February, potatoes that don't sprout, photographs safe and dry on a closet shelf. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year that used to go in the trash, staying in my pocket, and most of all, the quiet confidence that I can take care of myself and what's mine without leaning on anybody or anything designed to keep me spending. That's what these forgotten storage tricks really give you. It was never just about carrots and flour. It was about staying in charge of your own life. If you take just one thing from everything I've told you, let it be this. The old ways didn't disappear because they stopped working. They disappeared because somebody made more money when you forgot them. And every jar you fill, every bay leaf you tuck away, every box of carrots you bury in sand is you quietly taking that knowledge back. You're the kind of person who suspects that, aren't you? You already had a feeling that the modern, expensive, throw-it-out way wasn't the only way, that something useful had been set aside so someone else could profit. That instinct of yours is right, and it's worth more than you know. So let me ask you something, and I really want you to answer me. Out of everything I confessed today, which mistake were you making without realizing it? Was it the medicine in the bathroom cabinet, the way it was for me? The potatoes and onions sitting together? The photos down in the basement? Tell me in the comments right now, just a line, so I know which one to warn the next person about first. This channel only works because we tell each other the truth, so leave that comment. And if you want more of this, the real, tested, forgotten wisdom that keeps your money in your pocket and your independence in your own 2 hands, come along with us. This isn't about following some channel. It's about a group of us, people who refuse to be caught off guard, quietly recovering what our grandparents knew before it's gone for good. Because next time, I'm going to tell you about the one item my grandmother kept in her root cellar that could keep an entire winter's worth of apples from ever going soft, and the reason the grocery stores hope you never figure it out. I found it in the same old bulletin, and once you see it, you'll never look at your fruit bowl the same way again. Move that box of photos tonight. Put 1 bay leaf in your flour before you go to bed, and I'll see you on the next one. Before you go, one thing. This video showed you the tricks, but inside my membership, the Wise Living Circle, I walk you through the full storage method, item by item, right where we left off. In there, you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime, no risk,